Siemens Accelerator Platform. Now, what does that actually mean on the ground? What kind of improvements are we talking about?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. They've moved past just emailing files around. Think of Accelerator more like a central digital workspace, a digital twin environment, really. It lets them build virtual copies of their designs, but crucially, it pulls in data from engineering, manufacturing, even the supply chain. It's all in one shared digital thread.
The digital thread, okay.
Right. So the data isn't siloed anymore. It lives in these shared repositories. Everyone who needs it, engineers, supply chain folks, project managers, they can all access the same up-to-date information. And that unified approach, well, it's led to some pretty dramatic efficiency boosts.
Dramatic how? Can you give us some numbers?
Sure. So engineering rework, fixing mistakes in the design, that used to be around 20% of the parts on a project on average. It dropped to just 1%.
1% from 20.
Yeah. Incredible, right. And then manufacturing rework, things like material review boards, dealing with parts that aren't quite right, or deviations from the plan that fell by half. These are significant shifts in how they operate.
Wow, those numbers are huge. 1% rework. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there a concrete example of this speed in action?
Absolutely. They point to the Model 437 Vanguard. It's a technology demonstrator aircraft. It was built by Scaled Composites, which is a Northrop subsidiary, and it went from concept to first flight testing in only 27 months.
27 months.
Yeah. Adam Shepard, he's one of their digital engineering experts quoted in the piece. He called that time frame incredible compared to how long these things usually take.
And I guess a lot of that speed comes from the digital side, like simulation.
Exactly. If you think about aerospace, physical testing is hugely expensive and time-consuming. So many safety checks. What digital simulation lets them do now is get results that closely match the physical tests for many aspects. They can do a lot more validation up front, virtually, which really compresses that testing window later on.
Okay, so the tech side sounds sorted, but the article really dives into the human dynamics, too. It talks about short-term conflict and feathers getting ruffled when you put designers and manufacturing experts together in this new digital way. What was really going on there?
Right, and that's often the tougher part, isn't it? Shepard himself says the human element is a lot harder than the technical element. You see, historically, designers were really focused on, say, optimizing the aircraft's performance. Makes sense. But they weren't necessarily thinking quite as much about how easy or difficult it would be to actually build or maintain that design.
The classic design versus manufacturing tension.
Precisely. So Northrop pushed for what they call a shift left, basically bringing the manufacturing folks and their expertise much earlier into the design process. The goal is design for producibility, sustainability, maintainability, right from the get-go.
Makes sense. But getting people to change how they've worked for maybe decades.
Exactly. The article says it was not trivial. Think about people used to saving files on their own computers, maybe printing things out. Suddenly, they're in this shared digital space, getting feedback way earlier. That initial conflict, that natural tension between design and manufacturing, as Shepard puts it, it happens sooner. But the key is, making changes earlier is much, much cheaper than finding problems down the line.
So, okay, that tension isn't necessarily bad if it happens early and leads to better outcomes. But how did they actually manage that? How did they get people on board?
Well, it sounds like the cultural change was really deliberate. It started from the top down. The CEO actually set up a specific digital transformation office. That sends a strong signal.
Right. Leadership buy-in is crucial.
Absolutely. And then to overcome the resistance on the ground, they focused on showing early areas of success, like demonstrating specific cases where that early collaboration, maybe a suggestion from manufacturing, directly saved time or cut costs later. Seeing those tangible wins, that's what really drove the cultural buy-in across the teams. People started to see the value for themselves.
So it seems this deep dive really highlights something important. The tech, the digital tools, they're powerful enablers for sure. But the real transformation at Northrop Grumman, it seems, came from tackling that human element head-on. Even embracing that initial, maybe uncomfortable butting of heads at the necessary step to get to better efficiency and ultimately innovation.
Yeah.
So maybe something for you listening to think about. Where in your world, in your work or industry, could a bit of that managed short-term conflict brought in early and intentionally maybe unlock some really significant long-term improvements?